For more on the effect of Hurricane Harvey, we now cross to our correspondent in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, thank you so much for joining us. Now, what's the impact of Hurricane Harvey so far?
This is an ongoing weather system, Lulu. You'll understand that it's very difficult to sort of estimate or predict exactly what the end result will look like. This is now officially a tropical storm. It has been downgraded from a Category 4. When it hit the U.S. mainland, particularly the state of Texas, it was, as that piece mentioned, the second strongest category. It could have been Category 5 being the worst. It soon then was downgraded to a Category 3, and now a short time ago, the Weather Service has announced that it is now a tropical storm. But the concern here is that this is a meandering storm. It is hovering, it is lingering over that region just off the coastline of Texas. And the big concern now for authorities, Lulu, is localized flooding. There's been a great deal of damage to buildings and infrastructure in towns like Yorkville, in towns like Corpus Christi, Houston, Texas, which is one of the big centers in Texas, Rockport. But unbelievably, I mean, if we can call it that, only one death has been reported so far. And that one death was just reported a short time ago. So for the last 16 hours, there were no casualties. And if I think back to storms like Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Wilma in 2005, huge devastation, large numbers of deaths. The death toll was very, very high, including Sandy, which touched the Northeast, including New York City, where I am, in 2011. A great deal of devastation, over 200 people killed in that storm. So far, so good in terms of the death toll as it relates to Hurricane Harvey.
Now, Sherwin, what measures has the U.S. government put in place to counteract the storm?
What the United States government has is an agency called the Federal Emergency and Management Agency, FEMA. FEMA is the agency or the department, the governmental department that responds to all sorts of catastrophes and weather systems around the country throughout the year. They have been on high alert at their headquarters in Washington. They've deployed resources into Texas. Of course, the governor of Texas, Rick Abbott, appealed to President Trump yesterday to sign a declaration, emergency declaration, which frees up federal dollars, which frees up military assets so as to assist in search and rescue operations in Texas. We are told there are some 1,000 search and rescue crews currently sweeping the state of Texas. For those people that decided to stay behind, of course, there was an evacuation order issued for many of the coastal areas in Texas, and hundreds of thousands of people heeded that call. But for those people that stayed, the concern is that the storm is still ongoing, and the prediction is that it will hang around in the region for up to 1 week. And what you have in these types of weather events, Lulu, is the bands of the hurricanes, the bands of the tropical storms. It can rain very severely for a short period of time, and then a short period later, it can be an eerie calm. And when the next band hits, that's the concern here. We're told that some 300,000 people in the region are without electricity at this moment. And so for those people that have decided to stay behind, they don't know when the lights are going to be coming back on. They won't know when they'll get a gas service again. So a great deal of concern for people that have stayed behind because the storm is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Now, Sherwin, just speaking of the people who decided to stay behind, is there no way of getting them to leave, or does it not create more work for emergency rescue services?
Yes, I mean, I can speak personally from my experience. When Sandy hit New York City in 2011, we got a mandatory evacuation order. And it doesn't matter if you are at sea level, if you live in a high-rise building, everybody had to get out. Of course, many people decided not to heed that warning and stayed behind. And of course, there was a great deal of devastation in the downtown area of Manhattan, other states like the coastal areas of New Jersey. And people that had to stay there had to be evacuated, had to be rescued. Particularly as we're predicting in southern Texas, there's going to be huge amounts of rain, and of course the concern of a great deal of flooding. Standing water makes it so much more difficult for vehicles, for emergency vehicles to get to where people are. So, the alternative then is for people to actually little boats, little dinghies with motorized engines that can actually then traverse those roads, which essentially then become ravines. So it is a very difficult situation. I mean, the concern here is that how easily and how quickly, particularly if people are injured or old, a rescue service and emergency services can get to them.
Now, Sherwin, in terms of the people that have heeded the call and are at the safety centres, what's the situation there in terms of, supplies? Have they been given supplies for their stay there? Because it's another week to come, as you mentioned earlier.
In a great deal of uncertainty. Of course, the emergency response has to respond to kind of how the situation develops on the ground. So clearly, if this hurricane or this now tropical storm, which will then eventually just become a storm if it persists, the concern here is do people have enough supplies? Of course, businesses do a roaring trade. But what has happened is people have taken only so much with them. If they've left their homes in the south near the coast and driven inland, the concern now is how long they'll be able to either stay with family, in hotels, in emergency centers, as you say. So really, this is where the Federal Emergency and Management Agency, FEMA, comes into play. So it's something we'll be watching in the days ahead.
Sherwin, it is definitely a developing story, and we will be getting further updates from you as the week progresses, and hopefully there won't be as much devastation as we've seen in the past years. Thank you so much for joining us. That was our New York correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, and he was joining us via Skype.